Good morning once again. It's Monday morning, the sun's trying to come out, and I thought, well, I'll put another telephone up. I've had a little bit of luck with my white ivory Indian phone. When I say Indian, it's actually, I'm pretty sure it's made in England by Automatic Electric. The dial is completely, I suppose you could use the word knackered. It was really in a bad state. Some of the parts of it have been glued back, which was a hell of a job getting the pieces out because I wanted to preserve the chrome finger wheel. I have just fortunately bought another automatic dial off of eBay. I was lucky. I put an offer in and it was accepted. And that dial, although it's obviously old, looks brand new. It looks as if it hasn't been used. So I thought, well, if I use that dial in the phone, it should be okay. Only problem is I want to change the finger wheel because the finger wheel out of my ivory phone is chrome, whereas this on this new dial it's black. And anyhow, the actual numbers have got misplaced, so the numbered disc that's on there has been put back in the wrong place. But not a problem. But it looks superb, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Anyhow, while I was talking about, this is a 24C type dial, never used by the post office. It seems they were used in Hull, used in France, and of course on the Indian telephones. The Indian telephone ones were obviously made in India, but the Indian telephone I've got, I think it's either a prototype or it's a little bit rarer. That was in fact made in England, Liverpool. So I'm replacing the dial with one also from Liverpool. So I'm well pleased. I could say, like a dog with two tails. Anyhow, enough of my talks about that. Here we have a candlestick. Now I picked this up, or pick it up, I bought it. It was quite expensive at the time. I think it was in the late 60s. I was working at a GPO at the time, and I visited perhaps one of the best known unknown collectors of the time. In fact, many people just have never heard of him. That's Mike Joannew. He had his collection at Thames Ditton, which is very close to Kingston. And I had the pleasure to visit him with another friend from BT and see exactly what he had. I was absolutely amazed, because you imagine in the 1960s people didn't really collect phones, they just used phone as a convenience. I suppose the same as we today use the mobile phones. But anyhow, let me turn this off a minute. Hear the fridge on. Oh, I'll turn the fridge off. In those days, the phone was used more or less as a tool to speak to people. It was unheard of to collect them. Anyhow, this collector, which not many people have heard of him, I just don't know why. He had some amazing stuff. He also had a load of pinball machines. They're the things that are used in pubs and that and fairgrounds. Yeah, they had a load of those, which I think he used to maintain. But he also was the owner of a public house in Epsom. So, as I say, I was amazed. I can always remember his pot belly. When I'm talking about a pot belly, I'm not talking about a little fat man. I'm talking about a telephone manufactured by Automatic Electric. which are very rare. I've only ever seen the one that he had, and he had it placed on his mantelpiece in place of honour. It really was an unusual device. It was called a potbelly telephone because the shape of the dial was quite enormous, and that was at the middle of the phone. It was in fact a candlestick type, and it did look like a little fat man with a big pot belly, and this is what they were known as, automatic pot belly. Anyhow, I picked up quite a few odds and ends that he had, not all cheap, but there again, rarity value. As my father once said to me, I said to him once, I said, "Blimey, the price of those phones," and he said, "Well, it's rarity value," and he was quite right. They are rare. Anyhow, here we have one of his phones which I purchased from him. It's also made by Automatic Electric, obviously not of the same calibre as the potbelly, but you can see the name there, Automatic Electric. And this was, as I said before, the company originated from Strowger, the undertaker, who was losing business. It's amazing how the Alwyn B. Strowger probably brought the birth of the automatic switching to the telephone system. We, in fact, in England use the Strowger switch 2 motion, be it pre-2000, 2000 or 4000 type. 4000 type was the latest version, which was invented by General Electric Company. Unfortunately, the bits started to fall off of them when they were in use, so they had to be modified. But anyhow, I'm going off the subject again. I do like talking. Here we have the candlestick. It's not enormous. There's the length. But have a look at the dial. This is a Mercedes dial, so named because it looks like the trademark on a Mercedes car. And these dials were obviously popular in that time of period. They were used on, I believe, some phones sold in England. Whether they were used by the BT or post office, I do not know. But they did occur. And also, France used this type of dial. In fact, France used the automatic dial, which I've always spoke about, having a space between the, which isn't in this case, between the finger stop and the 0. This is not how, mind you, it is not the standard type of dial, but it's a standard automatic dial, because automatic dials were invented in Kansas. I imagine it was Kansas, or certainly in America, by the Automatic Electric Company, which was the brainchild of Strowger. I haven't taken the transmitter up. This transmitter is possibly one they called a hardback, I think that was the name, or Blake's transmitter. Any information of that, have a look it up. I'm not taking it out because I don't want to do any damage. This phone is quite old and fairly rare. The receiver is the normal type of receiver you'd see on a candlestick. You've got your diaphragm there. The horseshoe magnet extends within the tube. Horseshoe magnets, poles ending up where the diaphragm goes, and they're surmounted by voice coils or coils wrapped around it. The cable is obviously original. Okay, worn in places, but it's all part of the, I was going to say the patterner, but it's not, I can't really call it patterner. It's old age. So there's your cable. the hooks there have always got little O's. The English candlesticks didn't have this. They had a solid type of holder. The base, there's the base which screws on with a beige covering so it wouldn't scratch anything it was put on. The screw was slightly countercunked, so that it wouldn't scratch. That's the base. Turning the phone over and have a quick look inside. Now these obviously were very basic and consisted of the dial. There's your dial, and this dial doesn't seem to work upside down. It's probably something to do with the fact it's old. But there's the automatic dial, same shape again. You've got your little tower of springs. Alright, they've slightly modified it to the modern days, but it's more or less the same. You've got your governor, the make and breaks, so it hasn't really changed. You've got your switch hooks there. They put that little bit of tape on there. I think I've left it on there. It doesn't affect it at all. But there's that. And your terminals. Now you may be wondering where other bits are. Okay, didn't have other bits. They were fitted in a separate box. You had a bell set which was separate, and in the bell set would be your side tone coil. So that was always separate from the phone. So when you get a candlestick, don't expect to have a bell in it, unless it's one that's been messed up or remade. A lot of Indian ones are coming in, which, well, they're not genuine, and they might have a tiny bell inside and a little induction coil. I know modern induction coils, you could get one of these in, but no way would I do that. That would take the value away. Look at the back of the phone. Can't see any numbers there. Might be a number. No, there's no numbers. Well, when I say there's no numbers, I can't see any numbers. That, believe it or not, is more or less all. The dial is slightly smaller. The diameter across there is smaller. And you've got your writing on there. There, that shows up well or not. There we are. Hopefully that'll show up. Just numbers. It's got no letters. It's 1 to 0. A typical Mercedes type dial. Well, that is more or less all. If any questions, please ask. And I did this video, hopefully will remind people of Mike, Joe and you, who unfortunately, not long after I'd visited him, it was reported on the wireless radio, I don't know if it was LBC at the time, or it was on one of the stations, that he had been murdered, which was a shock, I can tell you. The murder was carried out by his wife's lover, who was in the, I'm pretty sure, the army, and I think he was shot outside of his house at Thames Ditton, and not very nice. So it was a shock. So that was Mike, Joe and you. I haven't got any further news on this. This was, as I say, quite a long time ago, and not many people, or not no one I know connected with telephones knows anything about it. So I'm probably privileged to know that. So if anyone else has heard of him, I'd love to know where his collection went to. He had a fantastic collection, and I mean a fantastic collection. I had quite a few bits and bobs from him. Some American phones, a couple of candlesticks, a British candlestick with the bell set. So I was well pleased, but saddened to hear he had been murdered. But that was the truth. That's what happened. I always remember him for his potbelly telephone, that is. Anyhow, thanks again for watching. Anything you want to say, please pass comments, any information. If anyone does know of this Mike, Joe and you, of Thames Ditton, if anyone recognises his house, he always had a penny farthing bicycle. It was in the porch. I think it was in the porch, but he definitely had a penny farthing bike, which was the first thing I saw when I visited him. And he had a load of pinball machines. I think these were made by Gottlieb, Williams, and I can never think of a third one. Gottlieb, Williams, and there was another. There's three names that come to mind, but I can't remember the third one. So if you do remember, put it down there. There's Williams, Gottlieb. No, it'll probably come to me as soon as I close this video. So anyhow, I'm going to stop rabbiting on. Don't you all drop into sleep. So once again, thanks. And oh, by the way, my new pussycat seems to be settling in very well. I'm well pleased. So that was it. Anyhow, thanks again. Thank you.